Well, hello there. I'm Lexi, and this is the Prodigal's Purpose podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about a more sensitive topic having to do with body image as well as mental health. So, this might be a bit more of a sensitive topic. Just wanted to give you a fair warning. Today, I'm going to be sharing some personal experiences, and so I also just want to clarify before I begin that a lot more people than we realize have these similar struggles, and it's really important to seek help and to talk to somebody and to remember that there are access to a lot of resources that can help you through these struggles. Okay, so hello. Today we are going to be talking about something that I think every human experiences or goes through, and it has to do with body image. Okay? We live in a world where how you look dictates your worth. And that was a lie I really struggled with a lot growing up. And I'm not going to lie, even this morning, I struggled with it. But I think it's really important to name those struggles, to identify those struggles, but then also to see where is God when I have those struggles? And what does my faith have to do with how I view or treat or use my body? So that's what we're going to be discussing today. I am going to divulge into a little bit of backstory and just my personal experience with my body image. Growing up, I was just round. I was just the round little kid. I would say I was active, like I loved playing tag and running around and playing with friends. But active is not athletic. I think I attempted just about every sport, and your girl was not some MVP D1 athlete, which is hilarious because I actually come from like a family that is like heavy on athletics. Like they are just born with so many natural gifts. And so I was like the ugly duckling of it all. I just kind of stuck out like a sore thumb. And through that, there was a lot of comparison growing up just naturally of, wow, that player's faster than me. Wow, that person's taller than me. Wow, that person's skinnier than me. Wow, her face doesn't get like 50 shades of red when she runs a lap. There just was a lot of comparison. And I love that saying, comparison is the thief of joy. I would agree. Yeah, it is. It is. And so growing up, there was just always this comparison narrative I struggled with of, why can't I be more like that? Why can't I look like that? Why can't I yada, yada, yada. I also think or wonder too that I compared myself to my parents' experiences, and they were both very, very talented and athletic. And I wasn't that. I was this silly, loud musical girly. And so I did find my gifts in different ways. But when it came to like physical strengths, I felt like I always fell short. I would also say that I felt like what my body can do and how my body looked was something I needed to fix. I felt that I needed to tweak this, do this differently, change this about me, be more like that person. And I fell into this dangerous cycle that I think a lot of people struggle with of my worth is my body. And once I accepted that as like an ultimate truth, especially my adolescent and like early teen years, I just noticed that there was just this never-ending downward spiral when it came to my relationship with my body. And so with that struggle, I went into work mode. Okay, I started doing these fad diets, and then I would give up and kind of like emotionally eat. I struggled with emotional eating. If I had a good day, I'd get a milkshake, and if I had a really bad day, I overate at home. And so yeah, with the emotional eating, I tried all these yo-yo fad diets. I tried to see if I could skip a meal. I tried to extend myself and to do these like impossible 2-hour workouts. I tried to cut out as many carbs as possible and like give myself a goal of like how little do I have to eat today. And I do think a big reason that a lot of this was fueled was because I also was like deeply, deeply struggling with my mental health and with depression. And in my experience with my body, yes, I've always been unhappy. And yes, I felt like I wasn't pretty enough or fit enough or the right shape and all of those things. But I also, in a way, I kind of think I felt like this was something I could control and dictate. Like I really thought it was a very simple equation of do this much work eat as little food as possible, get the perfect outcome. And I didn't really understand how different every individual's body really is and how they react to different things and different workouts and different regimens. It got pretty bad. I I struggled with mental health. I also, started to think that I wasn't enough, and I, struggled with self-harm and punishing my body for not being what I wanted it to be. And I would say this wasn't self-discipline, this was self-destruction. I genuinely hated myself. It was very dark and it was very sad. But I thought that if I just kept trying these different things, if I kept pushing myself in these different ways, I would start to love myself, honestly. And I also thought that if I got the validation from others, then maybe the way they see me is how I would finally see me. It was a really dark and hard time. And I've gone through this roller coaster of, being really strict and seeing success and then gaining it all back with 10 plus pounds. And it just was up and down all of high school and college. And then COVID, it got really bad. COVID, I think being limited at your house, being limited socially, you start to self-obsess. And I really did that with exercise and food. Not in a necessarily productive way, but more in a destructive way. And so I, overworked out and limited my food intake, and I really, really hid it from others. It was pretty evident, and anyone with eyeballs could see that something was going on with me. I was rapidly losing weight, and I was consistently rapidly losing weight. But I think a lot of people knew I wasn't happy with my body, and I think a lot of people knew I was desiring a healthier body, that they praised me and, gave me the attention and the admiration that I've been hungry and longing for. And I started getting, male attention. I've never had that before. And this was just my little secret that I just held on to, and it was mine. People close to me started to notice this obsession and started to, stay by my side and voice some concern. But it almost made me lock in even more and push myself even more to keep going and to cut more people out and to hide. I started skipping family meals or going out socially because I didn't want to be around people while I was eating, and I didn't want to eat. I only sought validation from not people who actually knew me and knew my heart and loved me for me, but people who thought I looked good and all of that. And I will also add, I think the complexity of this situation and why it got to where it got was when I was starting this journey. It hadn't gotten completely unhealthy and a downward spiral. And my father was diagnosed with cancer. And I think that drew a lot of my family's attention towards him, rightfully so, and towards my mom. And I think it gave me the perfect opportunity to go further than I ever should have gone. And I will also say too, I think when I struggle, when it comes to faith or when it comes to, outcomes or things that I had no input or control over, I then latch on to something that I feel I can have control of. And so in the weirdest way, yes, I never liked how I looked, and yes, body image is a thing. But then also I think it was this coping comfort of my whole world is crashing down around me. My dad is dying. My family's struggling. I'm not even processing it, but I can control what I eat. I can control how long I work out. It just got really, really bad and pretty scary. After my father passed, it took a turn for the worse. I wasn't really talking to anyone. I was mainly just staying in my room or going out and partying with people that viewed me as an object and didn't really care what I was going through or what I was avoiding. And I remember during that dark time, there was this magical number that was my goal weight. Okay. Very unrealistic actually for my genetics and how God made me. But there was this magical number. And I always told myself when I was unhappy or when I felt really ugly, once I get that number on the scale, then I'll be happy. And then all the pain, sweat, and struggle I've gone through will be worth it. And then I can stop. I honestly thought to myself, people don't get it. The people that are concerned, it's not that big of a deal. Once I get to that magic number, I'll be fine and I'll stop and it'll be okay. And I remember I got to that number and I had dreamed and cried and prayed to God that I would get to this number. And I saw it on the scale and I stepped off. And I remember there was no feeling of joy. There was no feeling of satisfaction. There was no feeling of accomplishment. I remember thinking to myself, I can lose 5 more pounds. And I didn't realize it in that moment, but I realized how, just looking back, I realized how empty I was then. Just so empty. When you put your worth on things of this world and you invest and you sacrifice so much for that, you make it your God. Really, I was idolizing my body and idolizing vanity and how I looked. It's so disappointing. I don't know how else to say it. It's genuinely so disappointing. It wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth all the tears and sweats and stomach growling and my hair falling out. And, I was constantly cold and the shakes I would get. And I was just so tired all the time. It wasn't worth it. I didn't see that then. I just thought, well, I'm not getting that feeling that I wanted, so maybe 5 more pounds would do it. And I just realized, this wasn't me starving for like thinness, starving for attention, starving for gratification. Like I was starving for worth. I didn't feel like I was enough in this body. And I thought that achieving this unrealistic goal would finally prove to myself. No, there was no one around me saying I was worthless or unlovable or anything. It's so sad how beautiful and amazing of a community I have. It was myself. And I did not believe I was worth anything. And so this went on for a couple more months, and a very good roommate who was deeply concerned and kind of saw through the deception and lies and covering up I was doing. And she reached out to some trusted family, and they kind of sat me down and were there for me and wanted to support me and help me because they knew that I'd been going through a lot, grieving my dad and these struggles. And it was a hard conversation. But I remember my uncle sat me down, and I mean, we're kind of a fluffy family, and we aren't scared of telling each other I love you or anything like that, but he was getting very emotional, and I just felt so embarrassed that somebody knew my secret that I wasn't even hiding that well. But I was just so embarrassed, and I sat there, and I was waiting for him to be like, how could you do this, Lexi? What were you thinking? And this is so bad. And think of what your family's going through. All the lies I've been telling myself as a motivation to hide this pain and this struggle and this really unhealthy cycle that I was so tired, and I wanted to give up, but I didn't know how. And I was scared to give up. And it was like this curse and this addiction of, if you stop, no one will want you. No one will love you. And you'll be fat and ugly and right back where you started. And you've already suffered so much. Don't let this go. Don't stop, just these lies. And so I'm sitting there, and he's getting emotional, and I'm shaking, and I'm so uncomfortable, and I'm so scared because I don't think I can handle hearing him say the things I already view and think of myself. And also, my uncle's basically like my big brother, so we have a very close relationship. And I remember him saying, Lexi, I'm just so sorry. I have no idea what you've been going through, but to be going through this alone, I just feel that you've probably been living in a state where you believe this lie of shame, you're doing something wrong, and that exactly the things I've been believing. He's like, it breaks my heart that you've been living in shame, and you've been living in the lie that you have to hide this from people that love you so much. It's hard work. It's hard work to hide your pain, and I wasn't good at it, obviously, but it's really hard to hide your pain. So my uncle and my aunt were kind of the first to really address this. For me, it doesn't mean other people in my life weren't concerned or weren't worried or whatever, but they they were the ones that felt that it was most appropriate to sit me down and talk to me. And I'm forever grateful with how loving and supportive and patient they were. And they were truly Jesus to me in that moment, but it was still really, really, really hard. I was just so ashamed, and my first thing was I really, really, really did not want my immediate family to know. I did not want my mom, I did not want my siblings to know. And I'm sure they saw things and knew something was up, but I didn't want them to know the gravity of the situation. I mean, we had just buried my dad a couple months ago, and my brother's starting his senior year, and Gianna's only in first grade. Like, my family has endured the worst, not even year, the worst like 3 to 4 months of their entire life. I felt so selfish and stupid and just like a terrible family member to burden them with this. And so I was still very much so in denial. It was really good to hear love and compassion and support and truth from my aunt and uncle, but I knew I had to talk to my mom. And that was a very, very, very hard conversation. And so I hadn't done this in a while. I'd been avoiding God for a minute with my grief. It wasn't that I doubted my faith, and it wasn't that I thought he didn't love me or thought he wasn't there for me or thought I didn't question God. I hid from him. It's just that shame piece. Like, I think Satan's secret weapon is to distract us. And then when we start to notice something is off, something is empty, something is wrong, then he shames the hell out of us. Nobody loves you. Nobody wants you. Nobody's going to understand, and just fills you with these lies that even if you want to get out, you feel like you can't. Even when you do see brokenness and the unhealthiness of the situation you're stuck in, you're stuck. You're too far gone. No one will understand you. And so I was struggling because I knew I had to talk to my mom about this, but I felt like such a burden and so selfish to have to run to my mom as a 25-year-old adult saying, "Mommy, I need you." And so, hiding from God, I find myself in a church. And I'm sitting in the pew, and it's late, and it's dark, and I feel safe. No one's around, no one's watching me, no one's looking. And I just kind of close my eyes, and I think about how I got where I got. Like, this is a new low for me. And I start, struggling and seeing my worth. I just think of like every moment I see my reflection, like when I get ready, when I get dressed every day, when I'm doing my hair, brushing my teeth, putting on my clown paint makeup, the feelings I have in that. And I hate myself. When I look in the mirror, I point out every flaw I have. I see my scars, I see my stretch marks, I see curves and sizes in places I don't like. I see a very round face. I see my double chin. I see my huge arms. I see my stomach. I am just dissecting the girl that's looking back at me. And I am cruel. I am breaking this girl down. I would never, ever, ever say these kinds of things to anyone, even a stranger I don't even know. And I'm saying them to myself and about myself. And as I'm kind of visualizing myself standing in front of a mirror, and I'm just like breaking down everything wrong with me, I kind of have this visual where Jesus enters the room. And usually, these are like these quiet, alone moments I have with myself where I don't want anyone to see how I really view myself. I want to pretend I'm confident and I like myself. And Jesus walks in. And for some reason, I'm like waiting for him to point out, like, yeah, no, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. And instead, he like turns my body away from the mirror, turns myself away from the mirror, so I'm not looking at myself anymore, and I'm just facing him. And he starts showing me his body, of the wounds in his hands, the wounds in his feet, the cut in his side, all the scars on his back from the scourging. And it's messy. It's not pretty. It's not perfect. It's not cleaned up. It's not this world's definition of beautiful. Like, it's broken too, in a way, like mine. And mind you, as he's showing me these, he's not saying anything. He's not like scowling at me. But afterwards, he like grabs my hand and he says, "This is my body given for you." And I kind of came out of that prayer realizing in a whole different way what that sentence means. The resurrected Jesus could have come back as like Jesus 2.0, right? Um like visibly he could have been, perfected and all of that, but he kept his nail marks and he kept his scars and he kept his wound and he showed them to people because he used his body to serve others and he used his body as a sacrifice for me and for you. And it's like the greatest gift ever. I would never, break down Jesus for his imperfections. So why am I breaking down mine? Not saying that I'm God. I'm not, but I mean, Jesus was like, not in a proud way, but Jesus was unashamed when he showed me his wounds. There was no shame about it. And I think he was challenging me of the way you're viewing your body is not the way you were created to. Yes, you should take care of your body, but you're taking care of your body so you can use your body to serve him and serve others. My pant size does not dictate whether I'm a good friend, whether I'm a good teacher, whether I'm a good daughter. My actions do. And I need to take care of my body and love my body no matter the fluctuations and things that it happens to it. It's called the human experience. Nobody looks the same as they did when they were 14. And I needed to release that like idol of unrealisticness. And there was like this relief I felt afterwards of, I'm so grateful that I don't have to keep doing this rat race. I was tired. I was so exhausted. And so it's been a long journey and a difficult journey, but from that prayer and from the support of my loved ones and my family, I received a lot of support and a lot of help. I have gone to therapy and worked on my body dysmorphia and eating disorder and my mental health. And it's been a very long, imperfect journey. And, my body has changed from what it once was. And that magical number, I'm nowhere near it anymore. And there still are really hard days. It's not a one and done situation, but it is such a relief knowing that if I am blessed and get to go to heaven and get to go to those pearly gates, Peter isn't going to make me step on a scale before I enter the kingdom. Do you know what I mean? And I think I was like living in that lie for a really long time, and it was just the thief of my joy. But I also think I had to learn to be really honest with myself of my unhealthy tendencies, priorities, and the lies I believed in order to start to fully, receive the help that I needed. And so if you do struggle with body image stuff, I think it's really good to kind of reflect and see the realities of your life that maybe aren't healthy or aren't what God is calling you to. So the first thing is I would look at what upsets you or what triggers you or what sets you off when it comes to like that negative self-talk. Is it the scale? Is it the mirror? Is it validity with social media? Is it certain foods you eat? I think kind of being aware of what sets you off can really speak truth to what your view of yourself is and what's really going on. I also think, kind of keeping track of, the self-talk that you do have. How often is it? Can you stop it in its tracks and redirect it and speak truth into that lie instead of, kind of that snowball effect of it? If you really struggle and you can't, it might be something you want to explore, you want to look at, or maybe talk to a therapist or someone about it. I also think viewing your relationship with food is extremely important. Do you completely exclude certain foods out of fear or out of control? Do you feel guilt, or will you, change social plans based on what's on the menu? That can be a big flag as well. And then I also think looking at the comparison game of, do you obsess over social media? Do you use Photoshop? I know I have. Do you worry about comparison and trying to keep up with a certain person? I think those things are really important to be aware of and check on, because nowadays that's just like a normal Tuesday activity and day in the life for an average person. And I just don't think we are aware of it. And when we aren't aware of it, we think it's normal, and it can cause more damage than good. Some of the things that have really helped me is focusing on Jesus and the Eucharist. This is my body given for you. I think that prayer and that line really changed how I viewed myself. And my body is no longer a trophy. My body is no longer a symbol of my worth, but it needs to be an offering like Jesus is. Jesus says, this is my body given for you. Can I say that back to him? And how am I showing him that? I mean, I'm obviously probably not going to be crucified, but how am I using my body to serve God and others? So when Jesus tells you, this is my body given for you, can you say it back to him? And I think that is a really good kind of like self-check. And it's not in a like destructive, controlling way. Now, I am no expert, and I am not one to tell anyone what they should or can or cannot do. But I do really challenge you to just kind of, maybe check in and think what your relationship is with your body. Is it helping you get closer to heaven, or is it taking you further away from God? I think it's a really healthy and good time to reality check and to just see. And a lot of people do struggle with this. And so maybe a loved one that is struggling with this. I would, encourage you to speak truth and love into their life like my family did, and show your support, and understand that, at least in my experience, shame and believing in the lies is what held me back from the help I needed. And there's so many amazing resources that can help people. But I will say, even with all the resources and all the help and all the support and all the love that I had, I didn't start seeing results until I wanted to, or I was ready. So also be patient in the journey. It's a really long journey. Mine's probably going to be never ending just with everything I've gone through. But until I let Jesus define my worth, I couldn't get off the train. And so, pray for them, love them, and invite them into the multiple resources that they can use. And one thing that I think is a really good self-reflection is, if the scale never moved again, if you were stuck in the body that you have today and it never changed, would you still believe that you're beloved? Would you still believe that you're worth it? Because the cross has already answered that. And I think it's really important for us to challenge those lies that have been holding us back from a true and authentic relationship with God, and also just access to true and authentic happiness. It is insane how freeing it is to know that my body is not going to be in the way of my relationship with my God. It's a gift. My body is a gift. And what I'm able to do with it, I am appreciative of it, and I want to do what God wants me to do with it. And so I thank you all for listening to my story. I hope this brings some healing or encouragement to heal for anyone who's struggled with this. I see you. It's really hard. And for anyone who maybe hasn't struggled with this, please pray for those who do. It can be a very lonely and isolating and silent struggle that more people than you realize have gone through. I just really encourage everybody to pray with kind of that analogy or that visual I had when I was in that pew broken so many years ago of, if Jesus showed you his body and said, this is my body given for you, what is your initial reaction? And do you actually believe it? Because there were many days I didn't. But once I accepted that and knew that that was true, I was then able to accept my truth, that my body has allowed me to do so many things and has truly been a gift from God, and I'm not going to waste it. And I'm going to take care of it. And I'm not going to punish it or mistreat it or use it for people's validation or amusement. So thank you so much for listening, and never forget to ponder the purpose, embrace the journey, and live the conversion. Thank you.